Chapter 3. The plot twist happened so quickly that Catherine suspected she had drunk too much. Such a thought remained until Freya came to tap her on the shoulder. She said sympathetically,
"Don't get too upset. It's not easy to capture the heart of a tall, wealthy and handsome man. Keep it up." "No. He told me to meet him at the entrance of the registry office tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Catherine replied with a dazed look. Freya remained uncannily quiet for a moment before she burst out laughing.
"Congratulations on becoming Ethan's aunt!"
Catherine asked.
"You believe it?"
Freya forcefully pinched Catherine's soft face.
"Why not? Come on. With your naturally pure look, you can easily beat those young ladies in the entertainment industry. If I were a man, I'd fall in love with you at first sight. Let's go and have a drink to celebrate your marriage."
Catherine seriously wondered how much Freya had drunk while she was away. However, Catherine began to have a hangover after drinking alcohol just now. She felt her head becoming heavy. A Bentley Mulsanne slowly moved toward the pub entrance. The valet opened the car door, and Shaun subsequently went to the back seat. He undid the 2 buttons of his shirt over his front chest while leaning against the leather seat lazily.
"Didn't I tell you to keep it low-key?"
Hadley Young politely replied.
"This is actually the cheapest car in the Hill family's house."
Shaun frowned a little.
"Who else knows that I'm in Melbourne?" "No one except Ode, madam."
Shaun's brows relaxed. By the look of things, the woman's appearance just now was sheer coincidence.
"Find out who this person is. I want to know her information before dawn."
The morning sun shone through the curtains. Catherine, who was deep asleep, was woken by the noise outside. Just as she opened her eyes, she saw Ethan opening the door and striding into her room. Freya, who followed him into the room, roared.
"This is my house! You're basically invading my home!"
"Sure enough, you're here."
Ethan stared keenly at Catherine, who had bloodshot eyes and slightly messy hair. Catherine became wide awake at that moment, her eyes expressing dejection.
"The 2 of you should have a talk. It hasn't been easy being together for so many years."
After some thought, Freya turned around and left, closing the door behind her. The room was silent. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Ethan stretched out his hand to touch her hair. With a scornful look, Catherine dodged away from his hand.
"Does Rebecca know that you're here?"
Ethan's handsome face froze. Then he clenched his fist.
"Kathy, you're probably unaware that the Jones family has decided to give Rebecca 80% of the company's shares."
Catherine was so shocked that her lips turned pale.
"This is impossible."
"It's true. Your dad said it himself."
Catherine seemed to have grasped everything within minutes. She lifted her head and looked at her childhood sweetheart, whom she loved back then. Tears began to gush from her eyes.
"So that's why you abandoned me and chose Rebecca, right?"
Ethan gripped her hands.
"This is just temporary. I've just gotten engaged to Rebecca, but I'll leave our wedding on the back burner. As you know, my dad has an illegitimate son. If I don't do this, I won't even be able to compete. Kathy, I just want to provide you with a good life."
"Bullshit."
Catherine snatched her hand out of his grasp and threw insults at him.
"You're only 25 years old. Even if you don't get any inheritance from your family, can't you just start your own business?"
"You're too naive."
Ethan stood up slowly, hiding the emotions in his eyes. He said helplessly,
"There are things we can't choose due to our background."
Catherine sneered without uttering a word, as she found it unreasonable. Amid the silence, Ethan sighed softly.
"Give me 3 years, Kathy. You're still young. You can afford to wait."
Catherine nearly went mad. How dare he say such things in a self-righteous manner when he only wanted to make her keep her youth for him?
"You're treating me as a fool, aren't you? You've chosen to be engaged to Rebecca for the sake of your career. Who knows whether you'll marry her 3 years later? Please, get out of my face. I don't want to see you anymore."
Time will show my love for you. You can be upset with me, but don't go out and drown your sorrows with alcohol. It's not good for your health.
Since Catherine was not going along with what he said, he merely advised her before he turned around and left. Upon hearing the door shut, Catherine flung a pillow to the wall with reddened eyes and spent a few seconds sitting still. After that, she frantically put on her shirt and dashed out.
He's left. What's the point of going after him?
Freya quickly stopped her. Catherine took a deep breath, then gnashed her teeth.
I agreed to meet him at 10 a.m. to get married.
Freya said,
You actually believe him? Didn't you say you believed him last night?
Freya embarrassingly replied.
That's because I drank too much. What if he's serious about it?
Catherine pushed her away and ran out. Chapter 4. Catherine took a taxi directly to the Jones family's house. At that time, Mr. Jones had already gone to work. She rushed upstairs to take her birth certificate. Just as she walked to the living room, she saw Rebecca coming out of the study with a large pile of documents. Rebecca looked pure, with a black bob and a pristine face.
You're finally back, sis. I was still worried about what happened yesterday.
A guilty look spread across Rebecca's face.
It's just that Ethan is really not into you. You can't force someone to love you.
Catherine shot her a cold gaze.
Enough. Stop acting since there's no one else here. I underestimated you before this. Don't treat me this way.
Rebecca bit her lip, her tears streaming down her face.
I'll just yield to your demands in the future, okay? I won't get involved in matters related to the company. Take these documents.
As she was speaking, she shoved the documents into Catherine's hands. Catherine found it strange and subconsciously extended her hands to push the documents away. As a result, all the documents dropped to the floor.
What are you guys doing?
Suddenly, Sally Lennon walked down the stairs and caught sight of Rebecca's teary face, as well as the scattered documents.
Aren't these the company's documents that your dad asked you to go through? Don't be mad at her, Mum. It's my fault.
With a pale face, Rebecca hurriedly explained.
Kathy asked me to stop getting involved in the company's matters and hand these documents to her. I was planning on giving her the documents, but she's probably unhappy about the issue with Ethan, so... You're bullshitting! Shut up!
Sally glared at Catherine.
Who gave you the right to have a hand in the company's matters? It's your dad and me who asked Rebecca to go through the documents. Rebecca will officially become the manager of the company next week. You'd better behave yourself.
Catherine was dumbfounded.
Speaking of education and experience, I'm more qualified than her. Despite joining the company 1 year earlier than her, I'm not even a manager yet. What gives her the right to jump to a managerial position just like that? Mum, I'd better not become a manager. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Kathy.
Rebecca immediately said, while sobbing. Sally's heart ached very badly.
Look how much Rebecca cares about your sisterhood. What about you? You're narrow-minded and calculating. You're not even qualified to be a manager. No wonder Ethan would choose Rebecca instead.
Her mother's cruel words felt as if she was getting whipped. Both Rebecca and Catherine were her daughters. However, Sally was so biased toward Rebecca that she believed everything she said. Catherine had been by her mother's side since young. Did Sally not know her character? No one had comforted Catherine since yesterday. Everything that happened was treated as a matter of course. She was only human. As anger rushed through her body in a way that had never happened before, Catherine took 2 steps backward.
Fine. Since I'm so terrible, I'll leave, okay?
She went to her room right after she finished speaking. She got a suitcase and subsequently stuffed her clothes into it. Rebecca's voice came from the door.
Mum, Kathy's mad. We should talk her out of leaving. Leave her alone. That's just how she behaves. She has been pampered too much. She'll come back 2 days later. Let's go and buy you some clothes since you're going to get engaged soon.
Soon the voices became faint. With large teardrops falling on the back of her hand, Catherine carried her suitcase down the stairs. After that, she drove her car and left. At that instant, it struck her that she seemed to have lost everything. Why would everyone treat her this way when she did not do anything wrong? She clutched the steering wheel as her eyes flashed with growing discontent. After 40 minutes, Catherine saw a man's figure at the entrance of the registry office. The man looked smart-dressed in a perfectly ironed white t-shirt and a pair of black trousers. He was tall and sturdy, giving off an aura of brilliance. She rushed toward him after parking her car.
You actually came?
The woman's voice was filled with surprise and joy. When Shaun turned around, he smelled the alcohol that lingered on her body from the night before.
Didn't you take a bath?
Catherine felt embarrassed right away.
I drank too much last night, so I was already unconscious when I arrived home. I was in a hurry this morning, so...
When she realized the man's increasingly disdainful gaze on her, she quickly swore.
Today was just an accident. I usually take a bath every day and I love to keep myself clean.
She observed his features as she spoke. It was normal to find a man more attractive under the dim lighting of a pub. Nevertheless, one would notice that he was not that good-looking during the day. Having said that, this man was an exception. Not only was he not any less attractive, but he looked even more stunning with his elegant and cool features. He had a handsome face, and what was more, there were not any pores visible on his skin. Catherine was aware that a few young women who were going into the registry office to get married were casting glances at him.
What a handsome man,
the man beside the woman said.
Oh, the girl looks pretty too.
That's true. They match each other well. Their children will probably be good-looking in the future, unlike ours. How worrying.
When the discussion reached Shaun's ears, he said straight away,
We won't have children.
Catherine was at a loss for words. Shaun said,
We're divorced 3 years later. I'll give you a sum of money, which should be enough for you to live the rest of your life. Also, I won't meet your family. Think about it carefully. If you can't go along with this deal, you can leave.
Catherine felt like something was stuck in her heart. She was under the impression that he loved her at first sight last night. She did not mind him not loving her at first sight, though. With her charisma, she believed that she could win the man's heart in 3 years' time. She had to consolidate her identity as Ethan's aunt.
All right.
Once the two of them entered the registry office, they first went to take pictures together. The cameraman, who had spent a long time taking pictures of them, was not satisfied with the outcome.
Hey, can't you guys get close to each other? It looks sweet. Also, sir, smile.
An impatient look crossed Shaun's face. Catherine immediately hooked her arm around his, then said with a smile,
His facial nerves have been damaged, so he's suffering from facial paralysis. Don't force him anymore. Just let him be.
Deeply insulted, Shaun shot an icy glare at the woman who was wearing a cheery smile.
You'd better stop talking if you want to stop taking pictures,
Catherine whispered in his ear boldly while standing on tiptoes. Her scent lingered on his ear, tickling him.